A sneak peek of what's to come in the next hour, some of the marquee games of the 2026 Big Ten football season. We will announce them all on our schedule release special after a phenomenal year for Big Ten football, a third straight national championship. Now we get a sense of what's to come in this next year. Dave Revson, Anthony Herron. Just a quick note of what we are announcing today, because I think sometimes it gets confusing.
All right.
The opponents have already been known for a couple of years here. We know who everyone's playing in conference play. The big news today is the dates, when those games are happening. We'll show you a lot of the non-conference schedule as well. But again, most of the schools have announced the overwhelming majority of those games. The big focus today is the dates of the conference games, Anthony, so people can make travel plans, they can discourage fall weddings, all of those things that you're supposed to do.
Discouraging fall weddings, that does happen so much amongst all these fan bases, and especially when you think about the passion that's there to be there in person for the pageantry of all these different stadiums, with as fantastic as the Big Ten Conference has been. And yes, coming off the last three national championships with three different teams, as deep as we have ever seen this conference.
And again, we're going to speculate on what each of these schedules means. I think it's important to remind people we basically have no earthly idea in college football. I mean, last year, no one in the AP top six made it even as far as the college football playoff semifinals of the preseason team. So, again, future performance does not get dictated by past results. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And we're going to start with the team that had the best past results, and that is the Indiana Hoosiers. The defending national champs celebrated their first ever title 8 days ago, capped off that amazing run to 16-0, the single most unlikely story in the history of college football. They're 27-2 over the last 2 years under Curt Cignetti. So let's take a look at what is next. The defending national champs open at home against North Texas. Their conference opener is against Northwestern. As you look at the schedule, you will note just one bye. This is a 13-week regular season this year. First time since we went to 18 Big Ten schools. So you'll see that will lead to more weeks with numerous high-profile games. October 17th to date, many Big Ten fans will have circled the previously announced conference title game rematch with the Buckeyes. They're in Ann Arbor the next week with USC and Washington among the marquee November games. And it's a new world for the Hoosiers. It's a challenging slate. They will not sneak up on anyone. Right. And I think that's exactly the way that Curt Cignetti wants it.
And what's really stood out in each of the 2 years that Curt Cignetti's been running Hoosiers football is the fact that they've grown throughout each of these seasons. Indiana's become a better team from week 1 all the way through the end of the calendar. And that was certainly evidence in their national championship that they're just coming on the heels of. But I look to their week 8 game when they face Michigan, because they're going to have back-to-back games against Ohio State and then the Michigan Wolverines. And when you sort of factor in where they're at schematically right now, I look forward to watching Bryant Haynes continuing to run that Indiana defense and what he's going to need to come up with against Bryce Underwood and that Michigan offense. But I think for the Hoosiers, the physicality of those back-to-back games, because we know how deep historically both Ohio State and Michigan are, but then now we're seeing what Indiana's been able to put in place. And from a personnel perspective, this looks like a squad, when you factor in the offseason that Curt Cignetti's had so far, that their personnel could be even enhanced over what it was, and its physical gifts over what it was this last year.
Right. I mean, the portal class is really highly rated, kind of to your point. 247 has them 7th. Josh Hoover, obviously, how will he replace Fernando Mendoza at quarterback? I think that's a big question mark. But you point out the continuity, and I think that's really important. Having both coordinators back is huge for Indiana. How about the team that they beat in the Peach Bowl, the Oregon Ducks? Oregon got an enormous boost when quarterback Dante Moore announced he will return to school next year. Moore was widely projected as a high first-round draft pick, perhaps as high as number 2, after throwing 30 TD passes this past season. Instead, he'll be back in Eugene for his second full year as the starter after transferring from UCLA, spending the 2024 season as a backup. And here is the schedule for the Ducks. They open with Boise State. Conference play starts in LA with longtime rival USC. The Big Ten has tried to balance out the byes to avoid unequal rest. So, for example, when we see UCLA's schedule a bit later, you'll note that they will be coming off a bye when they play Oregon, just as the Ducks are when they face UCLA there in that Week 6 game. Oregon gets Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back in November. The game with the Buckeyes is in Columbus, and they finish up with their rivalry game against the Huskies at Autzen. This is a team, Ant, that it is hard not to be really high on. Just in talking to people around the Oregon program this year, certainly they were enthusiastic about the way that this past season was going, but there was always a sense, particularly were Dante Moore to choose to come back, which he did, that 2026 could be the year.
To be able to build towards that with so many of the players, contributors, yes, some talent lost to the transfer portal, but much that returns, and also, to your point, Dante Moore, what he brings to the table as a quarterback, and for Dan Lanning to continue to be able to build off of what his team did last season, what his young quarterback did last season. We know how excited he is for spring football coming up here, but for their schedule, I look to that September 26th game against USC because it's going to be a game where not only Dante Moore is on the field, but you're going to have Jaden Maiava out there as well, two of the most productive quarterbacks in the country from last season, setting up for a clash early in the year, I think, between the Ducks and the Trojans that'll end up being a pivotal matchup in telling the tale of how conference play shapes up.
This is a program that's gotten steadily better here in terms of how far they've advanced in the playoff over the last couple of years. I look at November 14th, you have Michigan, Oregon, USC, Indiana the same week. And again, with one fewer bye this year, you're just by definition going to have more marquee games on any given weekend. That'll be a great one. As for the Big Ten's other playoff team from this past season, let's take a look at Ohio State. The Buckeyes, too, return their quarterback in Julian Sayin, part of a loaded group that also includes arguably the nation's top wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith, along with running back Bo Jackson, 4 starting O-linemen, key returnees on defense, Kenyatta Jackson, Jermaine Matthews, among others. Here's what awaits that group. Ohio State heads to Austin in Week 2, one of the most anticipated non-conference games in the country. We already talked about their games against Indiana and Oregon. You'll note consecutive road games against Indiana and USC. Those are broken up with a bye. That is part of an effort to use those byes to help split up difficult stretches in schedules when possible. It's a very challenging slate. All but one of their conference games is against a team that made a bowl last season. I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat it. And this is a tough schedule.
And when you have key players who come back, as Ohio State tends to have, and even if they're not starters returning from last season, as is the case with Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith, but you do know they have guys who've showcased some of the depth of that program as well. But you mentioned that Texas game in the non-con. We know the Big Ten slate is going to be rigorous for the Buckeyes, but it was probably the most anticipated matchup last preseason, last non-conference slate, and now yet again, you're going to have Ohio State and Texas facing off again, and with that one happening in Week 2, it did end up being one that was pivotal in the CFP conversations later in the year because two of those preeminent programs, two of those preeminent brands were willing to face each other. And so now this is that leg of the home and home. And we'll see how the Buckeyes on the road in Austin can handle that. But it won't be a situation like last year where it's Julian Sayin's first start, first hostile road environment. Between he and Jeremiah Smith, they'll be extremely prepared.
And that was the game that propelled them to number one. Of course, they were number one all the way up until the Big Ten championship game. You got a new offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. What do you think of the model of going with another NFL guy?
I think it makes sense because that's really what Ryan Day has looked to model this program after. And he wants his players to not be shy about that being a goal and that professionalism that's there sometimes off the field, but how we see the Buckeyes operate on the field. There's a maturity to the approach that Ohio State players tend to take to everything they do. And so Ryan Day with that leadership, a DC who's been in the league, an OC who's been in the league. Now that can be a part of the recruiting that's there as well, where not only are we a team that puts talent into the NFL, but you'll be as prepared as you can be because the coaches who are here running the schematics on each side of the ball know how you have to operate to have success at that level.
Yeah, again, following that model of Matt Patricia, they got the top transfer portal class in the Big Ten according to 247. So it seems like, at least initially, the plans are working well in Columbus. They, of course, are 1 year removed from a national championship. Michigan is 2 years removed from a national championship. There's been a little chaos in between, obviously. Sharon Moore let go, replaced by Kyle Whittingham. Whittingham brings a sparkling resume to Ann Arbor after building an incredibly consistent program at Utah. Remember, took over for Urban Meyer there, was nearly 90 games over 500 in 21 seasons, winning 3 Conference Coach of the Year awards. expected to provide some much-needed stability for the Wolverines. Michigan hosts Oklahoma, key non-conference clash in week 2. First conference game is at home against Iowa. That is a big one. The Wolverines face 4 of last year's CFP teams. In addition to the Sooners, they have Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State on the schedule. Important to remember, these opponents were lined up before Indiana hired Curt Cignetti, so the Hoosiers were slotted in the bottom 6 when schedules were assessed for competitive balance. Would have been virtually impossible, obviously, to foresee what they've become. This is a very roundabout way of saying, Ant, that, at least on paper, based on what we saw, and again, what do we know? But on paper, that's pretty tough.
That's a rough schedule. It certainly feels that way right now, sitting here in January. But I think when you factor in Kyle Whittingham being able to infuse his own personality into Michigan football, it'll suit a lot of what this program has historically been about, how they want to operate. And to be able to have Jason Beck on the offensive side of the football, he's worked with multidimensional talents, as Kyle Whittingham has in a lot of his time at Utah. So Bryce Underwood, second year as a starter, can continue to show himself as one of the most electrifying talents in the country, but now will have the ability to come off that freshman season with all the experience that he earned, big moments, big stages. I do think we'll see a guy who can now attain more consistency behind center for the Maize and Blue. And Kyle Whittingham's defensive system, where he's always had fantastic defensive linemen, Michigan will certainly have that available to them. And they've been in attack mode schematically as well. So wherever they go on that side of the football, as far as the DC, it will be a Kyle Whittingham imprinted defense.
Proof of concept, no doubt, with Jason Beck. You look at great coordinator hires in college football. Last year, Whittingham bringing him in was a home run. They averaged better than 41 points per game and really ran the ball well. They were second in the nation in rushing. So it just feels to me like that fits the DNA of what Michigan football wants to be.